Hi everyone, and welcome back to Chill Horror. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We dive deep into the darkest, most chilling real-life horror stories out there. And if you're a returning viewer, I'm so glad to have you back, my friend. In this video, we're heading deep into one of the most mysterious and dangerous places in North America, the Appalachian Mountains. For generations, locals have whispered about certain places up there. Places where people vanish, where old warnings are still passed down, where some things were never meant to be found. Tonight, you'll hear two connected stories, one modern, one much older, both bound by the same chilling legend. First, a hiker's desperate fight for survival after a sudden storm forces him into one of these forbidden places. Then, the tale of a lost expedition whose fate became one of the first warnings locals still whisper about to this day. So, grab a blanket, turn down the lights, and remember, in these mountains, trusting your instincts may be the only thing that saves you. Now, let's get into it. Everything here was scary enough before I'd run out of food and hope. It was supposed to be a simple 2-day in-and-out loop of the Appalachian Trail to prepare for my through hike in the spring. My grandfather used to tell me stories about these mountains. "Stay clear of the caves," he'd say, rocking on the old porch swing. "Not just for the bears or the cold, some places weren't meant to be found." I'd laughed it off when I was younger, but as I got older, I heard the same warnings whispered by others. Old hikers, locals, even rangers. "There are places in the backcountry where folks disappear," one ranger told me once. "Not everyone comes back out, and not because of wolves." I never put much stock in it, until now. It was so easy. 1 hour of packing, a call out of work, and I was on the road. 10 miles in, camp overnight, back the next day. Too easy. But I should have checked the weather. The first half of the hike was perfect, crisp air, clear skies. I sat on a hickory stump, watching a squirrel jump from branch to branch until I noticed the storm. A wall of gray sweeping across the mountains faster than I'd ever seen. I knew I didn't have time to make it back to the car or the campsite. First mistake. I left the trail. I scrambled down a slope and tucked under an overhang, barely any shelter. Then the storm hit. The wind howled, trees cracked and groaned, rain turned to ice. My raincoat gave out in minutes. I was soaked, freezing and shivering uncontrollably. Then came the worst sound, a massive tree snapping uphill. I barely had time to react. The trunk slammed into my legs, sending me tumbling into darkness. I woke face down in mud. Head pounding, ribs aching, gear gone. I had no idea where I was. The forest around me was eerily silent. No birds, no wind, just stillness. I picked a ridge and started climbing, hoping to find the trail. Hours passed, nothing, no path, no sign of civilization. Exhausted and starving, I stumbled downhill toward water. I found a small runoff enough to drink, but with the sun setting, I needed shelter fast. That's when I saw the cave. Small, low, but better than freezing outside. I gathered wood, lit a fire, and tried to calm myself. "It's just a cave," I told myself. But the silence pressed in. I drifted into a fitful sleep. I woke to a faint whisper. Not in my ears, on the back of my neck. "Daniel, Daniel." I sat bolt upright. The fire flared unnaturally high, illuminating strange scratches on the cave walls, names, tally marks, words half buried in grime. One name stood out, Roaming Bear. Then came footsteps, slow, deliberate. "You shouldn't be here." A flashlight beam flickered deeper in the cave. I pressed against the stone, heart racing. The light swept toward me. "Too late to run now," the voice said. A shot cracked through the cavern. I bolted, lungs burning. "They've kept this place hidden for years," the voice called. "You won't leave either." Another shot, then something struck the back of my head. Darkness. Somehow darker than any storm. Some say they're still down there guarding what no one should ever see. I wish I hadn't. They say every legend comes from some truth. And deep in these mountains, there are stories older than any hiker's map. Decades before my own encounter, another group of men ventured into these woods, not hikers, but trappers, seasoned, armed, led by a guide who knew the land better than any of them. His name was Roaming Bear, and what happened to his expedition became one of the first warnings whispered by the locals long before my grandfather ever told me to stay clear of the caves. The water ran cold around the sides of the boat, just like the headwind we'd faced for a week. This was our third season up the river. I'd seen plenty black bears twice the size of a man, beavers damming whole rivers, but nothing unnerved me like the caves. Roaming Bear warned us from the start. Stay clear of the caves, not for the bears, for those who live below. The locals left offerings, hunting parties vanished. But we were trappers, not believers, until it was too late. That year's expedition had gone well. One more day downstream, then home. We camped by the river. Roaming Bear scouted ahead, but when he returned, he looked haunted. Just a bear's den, he muttered, but his eyes said otherwise. Later that night, he vanished. His musket, powder horn, and torch were gone. We grabbed our weapons and dogs and followed his trail. It led us through thick brush to a small clearing. There lay his musket abandoned. Impossible. Then the cold hit, a deep, hollow cold that seemed to pull the breath from our lungs. Ahead, a narrow cave mouth yawned open. The hound broke free and fled, but we couldn't leave Roaming Bear behind. Weapons drawn, we entered. Inside, the walls were covered in old scratches, tally marks, names, desperate carvings. Then chains rattling, footsteps. Suddenly, our torches were snuffed out. "Stay together," I hissed. We stood back to back. Voices echoed low, guttural. Figures emerged, gaunt men with hollow eyes, animal skins draped over their frames. Bone knives flashed. "Out," one growled. "You don't belong," Thomas fired. Chaos erupted. A blow struck my head. I fell. Dragged deeper, I glimpsed the awful truth: piles of bones, old clothing, relics from decades past, Roaming Bear's shattered musket among them. Faces loomed, scarred, feral, inhuman in their hunger. The kind of people the locals never speak about, the ones who never left the caves. Some say they're still down there guarding what no one should ever see. I wish I hadn't. Originally, I'm from West Virginia. I moved around between the Appalachian and the Midwest some as a kid. Between the ages of 10 and 13, I lived in rural Kentucky in the foothills of one of the oldest mountain ranges on the planet. I lived with my dad and my grams. We lived in what we call a holler. Think of it like a cul-de-sac in between a set of foothills. We lived in the middle of the neighborhood with nothing but family on both sides. No one lived across from us or behind us because of the foothills. When I moved in, my grams had some rules I had to follow. At the time, I chalked them up to hillbilly stranger danger. There were things like don't mess around with the wild animals, don't go out into the woods alone. Then they got a little weird: don't whistle. If you hear your name, don't answer and don't go to it. And if you see someone in the woods, you might know, no you didn't, and just come home. This experience happened in August when I was 11. My dad and I had a mowed path through the tall grass and berry bushes to the left of the double wide we lived in. We camped out there a lot because it was close enough that we could check on my grams. Now, when you're in the woods, things are louder than you think. You have animal life, bugs chattering, wind through the trees and grass. There was a stream that ran along the road you could easily hear. That night, we added the campfire to that list. My dad decided to go back up to the house about a quarter mile to get more beer and to check on grams. Before he left, he told me not to mess with the fire. After a few minutes of watching the fire, things started to get quiet, like real quiet. The wind had all but stopped. Bugs and animal sounds were all gone, and the stream sounded like it was miles away. I was getting uncomfortable even though I'd been left at the campground before like this. Then I started to smell and taste it. It was in the back of my throat out of nowhere. This awful metal tang. After a few more moments of dread, my dad came back. He was mad right away, said he could smell burning metal coming up the trail. He accused me of tossing beer cans in the fire. I told him I didn't, and even pointed to the fire to prove it. He said there was a storm coming in and we needed to get back home, and he let it go. We left the tent and started our way back. Now, the very cool but very weird thing about lightning in the woods is that when lightning hits, it lights up everything like the middle of the day, well up to the front of the trees. After the first set of trees, it's pitch black. There are no streetlights, and unless you have lights on your property, it's completely black. So it's pitch black, lightly raining, and other than the dim lights from the house windows, there's nothing. I'm eating watermelon as one does in August in the mountains when the first clap of lightning hits. Everything is as bright as it can be. After the second passes, it's black as pitch again. Next clap of lightning comes, and that's when I kind of see it. On the porch, past the yard, over the stream, past the road and the ditches on either side, just past the first line of trees, I could see the silhouette of it. Then it goes dark. This is also when I can start to taste that same awful burning metal. I'm not really sure what I saw, so I just kind of stay still. It's a few moments before the lightning hits again. The figure is now closer, standing side by side to the trees. Then it's black again. I'm standing now, not sure what to do. It's been 20 years, to this day, and I've tried but could never fully describe what I saw. This thing's head wasn't proportioned to its body. The arms were too long and the torso didn't fit right. It was like if you asked a blind person to draw what a person looked like, it just didn't look correct. Once lightning hits again, the thing is standing in the middle of the road. Not wanting to see this thing get any closer, I go inside. My Grams is doing dishes and asks why I'm inside. I told her I think I saw something. She almost immediately gets my dad on his feet, telling him to shut and lock all the windows and doors. My dad, vaguely drunk, obeys. That night I slept with her. The next day we discover the tent door is torn off. It didn't look like an animal. Things weren't cut or shredded, but looked like someone took and pulled it apart. My uncle, who lived a mile or so up, had all 8 chickens killed. Heads gone, no blood. The next few weeks, all the kids had to wait for the bus with an adult. My dad had to be late for work for almost 3 weeks. Anytime I tried to talk about it, I just had the subject changed. I just figured I was a kid and it wasn't important or real. It wasn't until years later I finally understood. I was in my early 20s and some cousins were in town for Halloween. As I was telling this story, my aunt got irate with me saying, "Don't you tell them that? Don't you put that evil on them?" After, I couldn't help but think back on all the times I tried to talk about it and how I was shunned. My kid mind not realizing it wasn't as simple as a subject change, but them actively shushing me. Once I started dipping my toes in Reddit, I realized there was a name for this fucking thing, the same name my aunt had called it that day at the party, and other people have seen it. The Goatman. What bothers me the most is how to this day I couldn't describe any feature, nor have I ever tasted that awful burning metal taste again. So friends, if you ever find yourself in the foothills of Kentucky, please remember my Grams rules. 2 stories, 2 lives changed forever, 1 ancient warning that still echoes through these mountains. Whether you call it the Goatman, or simply one of the many things best left unnamed, one thing is certain. Some places are better left undisturbed, and sometimes the echoes of the past still reach us today, in whispers through the trees, in footprints where no man should walk, and warnings passed down through families who know better than to ask too many questions. If you enjoy this video, consider subscribing to Chill Hour. There are many more dark tales waiting, and legends still whispered in the shadows. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever encountered something strange in the woods? Or heard your own family's version of an old warning like the ones in tonight's stories? Let me know in the comments below. I have read them all. Until next time, stay safe out there, and never forget, some things in these mountains are watching, waiting, and not meant to be found.